So I'm here in the forest outside of Durango, Colorado, and if you look at the area around me, can you tell some of the history? So this area has been largely impacted by a big fire. This fire happened a couple of years ago and it still leaves a scar on the area. But fires are also really beneficial to forest systems. So if we look around, we can see a lot of really low-lying brush. And in California, we have Native American tribes that practiced annual burning and sometimes biannual burning, where they would do controlled wildfires of areas to clear out a lot of the underbrush. And what that would do is to make way for a lot of the trees to not have competition for nutrients, for nutrients in the soil, for water, and for sunlight. So a lot of these lower plants and a lot of the low-lying brush ends up choking out a lot of the trees and really affects their growth. It affects, and we can see that in tree rings when we compare their growth over time. So look at all of this low-lying brush here now, and this is only a couple years. Imagine how much brush would be grown back in 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And then think about the effects that that would have when a fire does come through. This is one of the reasons that wildfires in California burn so hot and out of control. Not only is it warmer, and not only is it drier, but we also have had areas that haven't been burnt in so long that you have this huge accumulation of fuels that make the fires burn so much louder. Hotter. Louder is my dogs that are wrestling loudly right now. So I want you to look around and try and find what the producers, the consumers, and the decomposers would be in this environment. This is probably going to be very different.
Really, guys? Right there?
Right there.
Right there.
Okay.
Hey.
Piggies!
Go. Go.
So I want you to look around and try and find what my producers, primary consumers, and where the decomposers would be and what those would be. And these are probably going to be very different than what's located around your house, because I'm in a forest ecosystem and I'm at a pretty high altitude. This is about 7,300 feet here. And depending on where you are, your elevation is significantly lower. So your ecosystem is going to look very different. But the plants that are here all fill a niche and they're all part of the ecosystem. So I have many different trophic levels that are behind me. So see if you can pick out what those are. They blend in. I feel like Loki needs a jacket.
He needs a backpack?
No, Megan needs a backpack. Loki needs a jacket. He needs a sweater.
Here's a tree that didn't burn. Take a look at the undergrowth. What do you notice under the tree? What do you notice where it burned?
So I've been looking around in the forest for some decomposers, and I've been looking for mushrooms, because usually in a forest, especially in a place that's been burned, where you have a lot of stuff on the forest floor, you would have mushrooms. And I can't find any, but what I can find are lichens. So here on this rock, I have a bunch of lichen, and lots of science puns there. I liken you. But lichens are only found in areas that have very little air pollution. So they're a real indicator of the quality of air in an area. And if you get them wet, they will really open up and shine really green. But what these do is these are also decomposers. So what these do is they get some nutrients from the rock, they break down the rock. Even though rock is abiotic, it's not living, they break down the rock in order to put some of the rock into the soil, which adds to the nutrients in the soil. They can also be found on trees, but they're not taking away any of the nutrients of the trees. Remember that decomposers are specifically putting nutrients into the soil. So different ecosystem, different organisms.
As I was out here in the forest, I realized that just really aligned perfectly with what I'm going to have you guys do this weekend as we are heading into our test. So we do have a test either Thursday or Friday, whichever class you have, and we are starting some of our study material today. You will have more on Wednesday. So you should have already answered your quick right question. I'm going to walk you through what else we are doing today, and your exercise for the week is doing 10 tuck jumps. So that video is going to go really well into this assignment that I have for you called An Ecosystem Far, Far Away. And I'm going to talk about that in just a second. But first, as I was thinking about your science topics for the week, and I had been focusing on critters of the week, I kept finding these really cool articles that weren't necessarily animals. So I'm kind of changing that to be a science snack, so they can be things that don't necessarily have to do with animals. And I found this article that said the faster they grow, the younger they die. And it was looking at the influence of climate change on accelerated tree growth. And we can see that here if we take a look at this tree ring. So right here, we can see these tree rings and these lines. But out here, you can see they're really, really close together. Each line represents a year in the life of that tree. And you can see from starting at the center here, it's almost exactly that size, we have a long distance to the next year. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6 happens close, 7, 8. And by the time we get past 10, we can see that those lines are really, really close together. So indicating that that tree did not grow a whole lot in those later years. But in terms of its overall width of the tree, it grew much more in the first couple of years. So what scientists are finding is that all over the world, trees are growing at an accelerated rate. They have more warmth to grow. But because trees are taking in carbon dioxide, that means that they're also using all of the available carbon dioxide. And they're growing quickly, but everything around them is growing quickly too. So they are then greatly slowing down in their later years and dying quickly. Whereas some trees that would usually live to be 40, 50, 60 years old are only living to be 20 or 30 years old, as you can see in this set of tree rings here. And that's not normal. So scientists are attributing that to climate change. But then what's also happening is the trees are taking up, since they're taking up all of that carbon, it's kind of like a bank account. So trees are like the bankers that take in the carbon. And then when they do, they're removing that CO2 from the air. But because they're dying quicker, they're releasing it back into the air quicker as well. So then it's almost like it cancels and nullifies the effect of that carbon sequestering system of trees, or the ability of the forest to take in the carbon. So before we get into your work for today, I wanted to take a look at some of your Jamboards last week. As I was going through and grading your creative food web, I wanted to give you 2 examples that were exemplary, that you could look to be able to see what you did wrong and what this was supposed to look like. You can see this one up here at the top. Very messy. Lots of arrows going everywhere, and all of them extending from the sun on the right side to the mushroom on the left, because mushrooms are our cleanup crew. And they are the decomposers that decompose every living thing and release those nutrients back into the soil for other things to grow. So this one looks fantastic. It flows from right to left. I'm guessing that person was probably left-handed, because most people that are right-handed probably put the sun over here. So here we can see arrows coming from and to many things. The arrows are connecting multiple things. Remember, the arrow was going towards the area of energy flow. There are multiple food chains represented. Remember that a food web is showing every available connection, the flow of energy through a system, but a food chain is just showing a singular path that energy can take. So one organism to the next to the next. It's just showing one path. So to do this correctly, you should have shown multiple food chains. And remember, the arrows were going in the direction of. So this same thing, a little bit neater. You could see they used the scribble tool and they circled everything, showing it going towards the mushroom. So the next thing you guys are going to be doing today is something called a Google question. So there is a question that appears in your Google Classwork stream that has to do with wolves and how wolves change rivers. So this is the first thing I'm going to have you guys do today. So if you're not ready to start this, you can press pause. If you are ready to start this, we are going to continue right now. And when you are done with this video, you will push pause on my video and go into your Google question, which is in Google Classroom. So at this point, if you are back to the video, you should have finished your Google question. The next thing you're going to do, and this should be quick and fun, is something that I put in called an ecosystem far, far away. That's what that first part of this video should have introduced you to. So we are imagining that we are on another planet, and the column here on the left is what is introducing whatever organism it is that is on that planet. And here it's introducing how it gets its energy. You have to use these clues to be able to determine what sort of creature is it. Is it a producer or a consumer? And if it is a consumer, is it an herbivore, a carnivore, or an omnivore? So you need to think about, how does it get its energy? Where does that energy come from? And where does that place it in the trophic levels of that system? So if you want to work with a partner on this, that's fine. Please send me a private message through Zoom, and I will put you guys into a private breakout room together. This should be quick and easy and fun and really allow you to apply what you guys have learned here. So go ahead and press pause and work through an ecosystem far, far away. The final thing you are going to be doing today is the first review activity for your test this week. So in your Google Classroom, there is a video for how to use Kami. There was no neat way for me to get this from a PDF into a Google Doc. I apologize. So you are going to need to use Kami in order to edit this. So here we are reviewing each of the food webs present and identifying each of the components. Thinking about the main idea that an ecosystem includes both abiotic and biotic factors, and that producers are providing energy for the other organisms in the system. Here we have a fill in the blank. You shouldn't have to use anything more than once. Here we're answering this question in complete sentences. Why are producers so important? And then you have your key concept here: food chains and food webs model the flow of energy in a system. Again, we're filling in the blank, being able to read these hints and identify from this word bank what goes there. Then here again for 21, this should be in a complete sentence as well. How is a food web different than a food chain? And we've looked at that. We looked at that in our Padlet last class. That was also a question in your quick rate. That is all of your tasks for today, guys. Please make sure you have completed any late work that you have, and you can review all of our past items for your test. And on Wednesday, you will have a game to play, and there will also be a list of things that you can study for your test as well. Have a wonderful day. I will see you soon. The final thing you are going to be doing today is the first review activity for your test this week. So in your Google Classroom, there is a video for how to use Kami. There was no neat way for me to get this from a PDF into a Google Doc. I apologize. So you are going to need use Kami in order to edit this. So here we are reviewing each of the food webs present and identifying each of the components. Thinking about the main idea that an ecosystem includes both abiotic and biotic factors, and that producers are providing energy for the other organisms in the system. Here we have a fill in the blank. You shouldn't have to use anything more than once. Here we're answering this question in complete sentences. Why are producers so important? And then you have your key concept here, food chains and food webs model the flow of energy in a system. Again, we're filling in the blank, being able to read these hints and identify from this word bank what goes there. Then here again for 21, this should be in a complete sentence as well. How is a food web different than a food chain? And we've looked at that. We looked at that in our Padlet last class. That was also a question in your quick rate. That is all of your tasks for today, guys. Please make sure you have completed any late work that you have, and you can review all of our past items for your test. And on Wednesday, you will have a game to play, and there will also be a list of things that you can study for your test as well. Have a wonderful day. I will see you soon.